The movable alphabet is a little bit more intense to prepare, but it is very worth it and valuable in showing your children how to write. So for movable alphabet, the reason why we do these cutout letters is because children are usually able to start writing before they're even able to make the markings with their pencils to do that actual writing. But before that, they're capable of putting sounds together to make words, and that essentially is what writing is. So we are going to do that using these cutout letters. These cutout letters are made available teacher resources, which I will send out to my parents in my classroom. There's also this set made by Lakeshore in which they have magnetic letters, and for home purposes this is also really good. It's a little bit different than what we do. Their vowels are red and their consonants are blue, whereas if you notice in ours is reversed. The vowels are blue, the consonants in this case are pink. Both are fine as long as they're differentiated, but this is a good resource to use for practice at home. But otherwise, you can just simply print them out, cut them up, and have some way to organize them so you don't have to do this every single time. I paper clip them together. That way they stay all together, and even if they get mixed up, I don't have to reorganize every single time. If you do have some kind of container to keep them in, some drawers, some little boxes, then that would be wonderful. I've set it up on a small blanket here, a small child's blanket, and you would want to do that on something similar as well, whether it be a table or a blanket, just so that your child has a limited amount of space to write, and also that defines that space so no one else will come traipsing in on their work. So yeah. And the way that I've arranged it here is how it would be arranged in my classroom in the actual box of the movable alphabet. It has all the vowels put together, followed by the first and second row of short consonants, the second row with tall consonants, the last row with consonants that go below the line, and finally the last one, F, which goes all the way up and all the way down on the line. It's not really relevant right now, but it's just more for organization's sake. So when I do this with my class, sorry, my baby's in the background throwing all kinds of things all over the place. But when I do this in my classroom, I first start with the child being able to recognize the letters and the sounds that they make. So if at the beginning I would ask the child, find me k, k. And it's fine if they are able to bring either C or K. If they're able to find those and put them on the rug, either one is fine as long as they're able to hear that sound. So at the beginning, they might just be putting letters on the rug. Sometimes just for motivation's sake, I actually do words. So I might ask for log. So I'll ask for that first sound, L, and I'll emphasize that first sound in which they will find L. Next, I'll emphasize the next sound, law, and ideally you would not want to isolate the sounds, but because I am actually isolating sounds for them to find the letter, knowing that that's the skill that I'm working on, I do. So in this case it is law. Alright, and I tell them, last sound is g, log, g, log. And there it is, they've made their word log. And they may not be able to read this, that is completely fine. They may not even know that they finished the word, but that's okay. For that first scale, you're just trying to get them to recognize these different sounds and being able to find them, and that might be enough. Sometimes the children don't remember what those letters look like, in which case you might need to help. Sometimes I write it somewhere, hopefully that just the movement might remind them what it looks like. I might write it on their hand, I might write it on their back. If they're really stuck, but they're doing pretty good with the other sounds, I'll just point it out. But if you're finding that they need help with all of the letters, they might need to revisit the previous lesson, which would be sandpaper letters, in order before they can move on to this one. So especially since they might be a little bit rusty with the movable alphabet, then you can just review with that one first. But after they've gotten a pretty good handle on most of the letter sounds, we can move on to this one. So again, I would ask them for another word. I would say, and I try to vary the words. Sometimes, again, to practice with all the sounds, I might do different sounds, or I might repeat a sound that they're not familiar with in hopes that they would start to remember after a repeated amount of times what that sound is. So again, if they're having trouble with G, I might ask for another letter. So like tag, t, 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 tag, t, 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 ah, ta, ah. And tag, g, g, like log, g, right? Log. We have tag, same sound. There it is. Okay, there it is. So after some practice, we want them to be able to do this on our own without our help. So you can ask them to start with their own words. They can start writing their names. That's usually a good motivator. A name of their friend, their mom, dad are usually easy words that they like to write, just to kind of connect with those words and motivate to write. So I might start with that. When they start to master those and still need more practice with putting letters, then I might make those words longer. So I'm going from 3-letter words to 4-letter phonetic words. So now flag, frog, slip, so words like that. And then I might even go into longer, again, still phonetic words. You still want to stay with phonetic words, like stump, stamp. If they're really good, but still working on that same skill, you might even do long phonetic words like pumpkin, picnic, red rods, something like that. And then after they have mastered putting the letters down as you say it, then the next step will be them to actually make the words and recognize the sounds themselves in order to make it. So again, I might ask for the sound for the word cat, and I would tell them, what's the first sound you hear in cat? And then help them come to that sound. The first sound's always the easiest to recognize. The middle sound will be the hardest. So sometimes they might even skip that middle sound, go straight to the last sound. So you ask them for cat, this is what they might come up with. That is fine. That is fine, because that means that they're hearing that first sound, the last sound. They're not quite yet hearing that middle sound, which is usually the hardest for them to hear, which is okay. Some children like to be really ambitious and start writing their own words that have phonograms in it. So for example, they might really want to write the word shark. Is a popular one in our classroom. So just ask them, what is the first sound you hear in shark? You can even tell them that that's a trickier one because there's a sound in there they haven't learned. And you can tell them the sounds if you prefer. So if you can tell them that's a phonogram at the beginning, shh, you haven't learned that one yet, but it is made up of those sounds. And you can help them up that way. And again, that's just going back to that first skill of recognizing the sounds and putting it to the letter. If they prefer to do it on their own, that's always preferable. You always want to encourage them to spell those words out themselves. They might only hear s and k, and that's their word shark. And that's okay. You just encourage them. The more they can do by themselves, the better.